Hey, everybody. Thanks for downloading this episode of the Black and Gold podcast. This is the post-game edition, and it's brought to you by Appalachian Commercial Real Estate. They provide professional commercial real estate services in the Boone area, and they provide sales, leasing, consulting, and appraisal services to owners and users of commercial real estate. And if this applies to you and you want to learn more, just head on down to their website, AppalachianCRE.com, and Charles will be happy to give you what is the equivalent to the President of the United States, though, but in Boone, specific to commercial real estate. James Milner. Charles, give those digits.
828-719-0408.
There you go. All right. So full disclosure, I actually was not at the game the whole time. I made it to the second half. And before we get started, Charles, I hope you don't mind, I got a report on the Bunker Hill Optimist 8U Bears on Saturday. Played a game. We were an hour behind schedule, which usually happens with Pee Wee and Little League games. You know, if you're stacking games up on top of each other, super late, which is okay. But the Bears come through with a 6-0 victory, led by Maddox Johnson, who scored the game's only points, 6 points with the touchdown. We missed the extra point or opportunity. They don't kick at 8 years old, in case anybody was wondering. Over 100 yards rushing and 2 sacks, several tackles for loss. Was an animal. In the backfield all day, did a great job. So we got a victory before we even got to Boone, which was great. We're all exhausted. So I missed a lot of the stuff that happened in the first half. I did rewatch the game, and ESPN Plus now has a feature where you can watch on-demand games, and they skip commercials completely, which is great. It makes everything so much faster. But Charles, I'm going to have to lean on you a little bit for in-game experience because I feel like mine was very rushed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but overall, here's one thing. I'm glad I missed it because I didn't want to cry in front of my kids, but I am sad I missed it because I wanted to see it. The tribute to Sean Clark. I just wanted to hear from you how that was. I think that was the first time out in the first quarter they did something with Coach Clark.
It was appropriate. And right after we had kicked a field goal, if I'm not mistaken. And right after that happened, the first play after that happened, Oregon State's return to kickoff, and they cough it up, and they fumble it, and we fall on it, and DJ's doing this thing on ESPN Plus. He's saying, it's just the perfect timing, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, some help, and maybe some help from above.
Yeah.
And man, it's if you believe in stuff like that, I do. I don't see how you don't. There had to be some higher power there, looking down on Mountaineers, at least for a few minutes, or call it coincidence, call it whatever you want. Like Sean Clark would have said, I'm not superstitious, I'm just a little stitious.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I was very, very much in the moment. That was really neat. And you couldn't believe it happened. You couldn't believe it.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was great. And I did hear that on the broadcast, David mentioning that. That was really cool. And also very interesting how Miles Farmer is the one that did that, number 4. And we hadn't seen him do anything. I don't want to say he hadn't done anything. I think he's battled some injuries. So sorry, Farmer family or whoever. But really hadn't done a lot in a Mountaineer uniform, and then coughs up the fumble, which is great, or causes the fumble, I should say, and then has that huge stop at the goal line on 4th down with what is that, a minute some left in the game, which I thought was really awesome that you kind of bookend those big moments from a player that I guess now is healthy and playing. Is what I'm assuming, which is cool. But anyway, so starting from the beginning here, 27-23 is final score. Oregon State 0-6 now. Appalachian halfway to bowl eligibility, and this has been kind of the topic, like what kind of team are we going to be? We are who we are. We had on the show a little bit, I think, discussed what's it going to take for us to win, and I even gave something to the Beaver's Edge guy that we had on last week. And he's like, well, what do you think it's going to take to win? I said, I think that we will win. I think it'll be a 1-possession ball game if we don't turn the ball over. I think we'll win. And I actually thought, Charles, I don't know what you thought, but I actually thought Oregon State reminded me a lot of us in some ways. I think Malik Murphy, um, obviously very talented, has a good arm, has like a big physical presence. Played at Texas, played at Duke. Here he is, and all, with all due respect to Malik, those are downward trajectory. That's a downward trajectory in terms of football. Um, he made some really good looking plays. He's obviously a very good athlete, a good thrower of the ball, as they say. But man, he missed there in the, I can't remember when it was. I think it was right at maybe 10 minutes. Oregon State should have had that game won. I think with 10 minutes left and no pressure, missed his tight end in the end zone. He was right there. Some inaccuracy, some good looking throws, 2 picks. It was interesting. I just thought that these were 2 teams that were actually more similar than I originally thought, kind of going head to head and down to the wire.
You never know what a team like Oregon State has to go through with travel and coming as far as away as anyone ever has to get to Charlotte, do a walkthrough at Hickory High School. Their equipment truck was in Hickory. Get here the day before, and then what we would assume was take that fun trip up 321, like we've always talked about,
Yep.
and see how all that unfolds. Now, I don't know if that happened on Friday night or Friday afternoon or Saturday morning, but let's just say it happened on Saturday morning because that makes fun content. I thought they were decent, but you could see why they weren't good.
Yeah.
Right. Like they should have been able. I think for the first time all year, I've been able to like stick our feather in our defense's hat with like our run defense and say, all right, I think we're fairly certain we can like get in the backfield and get tackles for loss and just plug the gaps, which is what our problem was last year.
Yeah.
So, however you want to classify Oregon State, former P4, P5, G5, whatever, it's still Oregon State. And they got the money. They probably shouldn't have been as bad as they were. The schedule for them did not do them any favors with the Pac-12 falling apart, but that's the hand they were dealt, unfortunately. They probably were looking at this as like, hey, maybe we can get off the schneid here, get our first win. But if you'd have told me, going in that the turnovers that they were going to have, and we were going to keep clean, then, like you said, it sounds pretty easy. It's like, hey, we should win this game. We should win this game easily, and kind of, I don't want to say going away, but with some comfort, and certainly felt like that in the first quarter when, we get the ball and we drive. We 3-and-out them. We drive for a field goal. We get our turnover. Score a touchdown on that drive, and then the next time we have the ball, we score another touchdown. So like out of the gate, had a little help, but it's 17-0 quick, and everybody had to be feeling good, and we felt good, but we knew you had to also know that 17-0 wasn't going to be enough. We haven't been consistent enough, and you were like, at some point we're going to make a mistake, or we're going to play a little. Have a couple stretches where we're, don't do well, don't score on every possession. You can't expect that. And then certainly, that safety could have loomed large, but at least we were up 6 at that point. So it really didn't matter. But man, that was a tough end because, when we needed to kind of seal this game in the fourth quarter, our possessions were, all of our fourth quarter possessions were like,
bad.
It was 3 plays, a negative yard, 3 plays, 9 yards, punt, 2 -6 safety.
Yeah.
Like, that's tough, and that's real tough. And man, that missed field goal could have come back and been the difference,
Yeah. Well, there were 2 missed field goals on both sides, and those both were kind of looking, going, would have been nice to have that one,
but
by the end of it.
Yeah, but at the end, this comes down to the defense saving us like
for sure
the entire second half.
Yeah, for sure.
You're just like, moment after moment, when he missed the tight end in the end zone, you're like, how did that ball get through his hands, and how did it land in Colton Ferris's hands?
Yeah. Yeah.
On that last hit, how did Zaire Campbell with a cast on one hand like tip that thing to himself and get down?
Yeah.
How in the world did Miles Farmer play perfect, puts his hands on the end of the line, doesn't suck in, and wraps around his arms around one leg? Colton Ferris comes and cleans it up and gets his arms around the other guy's leg, and he's got nowhere to go. And
Textbook.
you just don't see that in football anymore.
Yeah.
Man, back in the day, I'll say back in the day, 10 or 15 years ago, like a fourth down goal line stand was almost commonplace.
Yeah.
And now offenses are so good that it's, you're gonna get you're gonna score a touchdown on a goal to go situation more times than not.
Yeah.
Which was wild. And they were right there. I mean, that ball was I think it was at the half-yard line. I mean,
yeah, it was at the half-yard line.
They reviewed that second down play and appropriately called, thank the Lord, because he was clearly not in.
Well, to some people.
Yeah, I mean, there was grass. I saw grass.
No, I'm saying there was the only person that really mattered in that situation that needed to make the right call didn't. Guy. So yeah.
But man, it was kind of a gutsy win.
It was.
No matter who was responsible, like that's an adversity kind of like type win that will, should build. You should learn something from that.
It should be encouraging for sure across up and down the roster. Yeah,
that it happened in Boone and like in front of our fans, like that should be a big deal. And so now that I'm finding out, AJ, you were there for basically the second half.
Yeah,
I mean, what did that fourth quarter remind you of? Right? Like, we had 35,000 and change in there at kickoff or when they stopped scanning tickets. And then, there was not as many in there in the fourth quarter, but it was the right people. We've talked about this a lot. It's like, man, this is playoff football. Doesn't this feel big? Like when I saw that bus coming down Stadium Drive on the way to tailgate on Saturday morning before the sun came up, I was like, man, it just feels like it feels so weird. Like that bus isn't Georgia State or Georgia Southern or Coastal or Old Dominion or Furman or Wofford or whatever. Like it's Oregon State. Like that's different. That's kind of a team we never play.
Yeah.
And of course we haven't, but it just gave me that kind of vibe. Like, man, we think we can watch film like we used to in the past or didn't used to be able to in the past and like get an idea. But now it's like, it's still an unknown until you get on the field.
Yeah.
Right. You just don't know what you're really dealing with. And even as a fan, you're like, I don't know what we're dealing with. I don't know what kind of team they have. Can they come back from a deficit? Like when we got up and it was like, was that? And no, they went down and like got down to business and made it 17-14 and all of a sudden it was a ball game.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I think what this feels like, to kind of piggyback on what you said about this being a gutsy win, what this feels like is a true team win. And what I mean by that is I'm going to give the flowers where they're due here, because Dozier and Dubinion had great games. Rashad Dubinion, who's becoming, like, to me, like almost underrated. I mean, he just does what he's asked, right? I mean, he hasn't fumbled the ball since Lindenwood, I think, right? I got that right. He hadn't fumbled since Lindenwood, I'm pretty sure. He
not lost one. Yeah.
Had not lost one. Right. But he's just kind of like doing what he's asked and like living up to expect. I mean, 19 technically, 19 carries for almost at 100 yards and a touchdown. So like, I give him his flowers. It's almost like he keeps doing that. We're going to kind of forget that. That's actually very impressive to have that many yards consistently every game. But Davion Dozier, 4 catches, 140 yards. It looked really good while doing it too. Obviously, there was that one big one, 68 yards, has most of that yardage in there. But outside of that, I don't want to say that they weren't huge contributors individually to themselves. But to me, this still, as we have played better competition since Charlotte, who's terrible, Lindenwood, who, all due respect to them, FCS, we just haven't looked. I think in those first 2 games, especially Charlotte, I thought there were probably more playmakers than maybe there are on a peer level. And now it feels like this was a collective win, especially on the defensive side. To your point, you just described it perfectly. like the way that everybody on that goal line stand did their job, right? So like the interior like plugged all the gaps and got a faster jump off the snap, where Farmer was in the right spot. You described it perfectly, and everybody's kind of coming in and doing what they're supposed to do. That's well coached. That doesn't happen on accident, right? They're being taught how to do that and play with a lot of intensity. But I don't feel like there's any sort of like stars on the field just making amazing play after amazing play. I just feel like collectively we're getting it done to win, but it does kind of shine through sometimes where we're maybe not as strong as we'd like to be. And there were some big passes there at the end, and I got to credit Malik Murphy. Made some big plays, and they had, who was that kid? Trent Walker was really good. Number 7, getting open.
Yeah,
So I mean they did their job too. But that definitely felt like, I mean, that was a team effort. Not one particular player took over the game. Really happy for JJ Cole. I would imagine that getting your first start out of the way where you played clean, that stat line isn't great, under 500 completion percentage. There were some clunker throws in there, but hey, if you don't turn the ball over and you kind of do what you're asked, I think that's what you want. I think he got sacked a couple times. But to me, I think this is good, that the problems that were causing us to not be competitive did not bite us yesterday. And JJ Cole at the helm, maybe this is where he stays. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't see anything from him that made me say, "Oh, we better have somebody else in there." I don't know. We'll see. I'm really excited that conference play is here. I'm really glad that we had this game before jumping into conference play, Charles. It's something that I think we needed to win a close one. We're at home again. I don't know what you want to classify Oregon State is. They're certainly not a P4, but they're not too
they're
far
not.
away from being that.
Yeah, they're not a G5 either. That's
Right,
that's that's the whole thing. It's like it's kind of this blended kind of description that we haven't determined what we're going to call it,
right,
or that it does it really need anything of that sort.
right.
Like I
Yeah,
don't think you can say just because what's going to happen with them next year and who they're going to be associated with that they're suddenly a G5. I
yeah.
mean, they didn't leave the conference.
Right, right.
Uh,
I do think it's funny that on the radio on the way up, hearing David Wells on the radio, I just couldn't help but thinking that Boomer, the old left-handed pitcher from the '90s and early 2000s, was out there bumbling around in the backfield for Oregon State. So
mhm.
every time Adam said, "Hand off to David Wells," like David Wells got a 6'4", 320-pound dude out there. Anyway, that's not what he looked like. But yeah, what do you think about our bowl chances now?
Uh, well, I mean, I think if you kind of look at the schedule, we can deduce a lot of stuff from what we've seen. I think our toughest games left are Old Dominion
Mm-hmm.
and James Madison, and they're both on the road. So those are the games I wouldn't pencil in as like that's a loss or that's a win, but like those are our toughest games.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of that is that we do have 4 home games left with 3 wins. That is helpful. And when you go to play at Georgia State, you're not really playing an away game. You just got to drive there. Um,
Have mom and dad drop us
yeah,
off.
just drop you
Right.
off like playing a home game. Georgia State, I think don't get too tore up on like how well they played James Madison this past weekend. It was a 14-7 final. James Madison is very good on defense, clunky on offense. I don't think anybody on this schedule isn't unbeatable.
Right. I agree with that.
And we've said that a time or two. Certainly, we saw Arkansas State sneak one out over Texas State, and Arkansas State was looking bad too. Like they were already in the down in the dumps. Like let's get this over with, and then all of a sudden they beat somebody. So I think the West is wide open. I think the East is wide open, and anything could really happen. But Georgia Southern is in shambles. Their defense is like one of the worst statistically in the country.
You say Georgia Southern?
I said Georgia State, but I
Oh, I'm
meant
sorry.
Georgia Southern.
I was look. Yeah,
Funny
I
how that
was looking
works.
at Georgia Southern's logo, and maybe I thought you said okay. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
they're in
at
shambles.
least that's what I
I just
thought.
wanted to hear
So,
you
like,
say they're in shambles again. Yeah.
long-winded answer to what are our bowl chances? I would think one would like to think that we can certainly get the 6 wins, like we should. Like if you got 4 home games, right, um, left, and a lot of these teams that you're going to be playing at home haven't shown a lot. Um, I think they're looking up, but how the tune changes from one week to the next, right? Like so. I think coming into the season, we would have said, look, we should be able to get by Southern Miss, but then that Oregon State could have been a toss-up. Boise State never loses at home. That would have been tough. But you don't put scores beside these things, right? So like if you say, oh, you lost by 16 points at Southern Miss, and then you got trampled by Boise State the way that game unfolded, and you're like, oh, I don't know. But now, like if you asked that question last week, not knowing that JJ Cole was going to get all the snaps and him looking good enough, like an old
Yeah.
school App State box score good enough, like
Yeah.
threw the ball less than 30 times, ran it for, efficiently, and defense did the job at the end. Like, man, there's a lot of nostalgia to that, along with, how playing someone we've never played before that like really felt. But now we go to the part of the schedule where we have some familiarity, but like our staff doesn't really. Some of our players do. So how will they handle that?
Yeah.
And so what does Georgia State look like after this? They have beaten an FCS, and that is it. They probably have the best chance they've ever had of getting one against us. But I feel like we've said this before, and what always ends up happening, right? Like we're like, I don't know, man. This year they could get us, and then we win by like 20 points,
Yeah.
And I'm not saying anything negative about them. It's just the way that's just facts. But certainly now we're looking at the schedule in segments, and we've gotten through 5 games. We're done with the non-conference, and it's like, okay, basically you have a perfect setup. It's no longer this like, hey, it's a month before we're at home again. You've got away, home, away, home, away, home, home. So, you figure that you hope you don't need to get to that Marshall game to get that 6th win. But if you did, you have to feel like playing Marshall and Arkansas State at the end of the year, like, and at home, not knowing where their seasons are going to, like, how they're going to unfold, what they will be playing for at all. It could put you in a good spot here.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the box score from 2020 when we played Georgia State at home. They almost beat us. Probably should have beaten us. That was a wild game, 17-13. This box score is crazy. Zach Thomas was 16 of 22, 146 yards, a touchdown, interception. Cam Peoples, 17 carries, 67 yards, a touchdown. Marcus Williams Jr., 13 carries, 22 yards. That's not very efficient. We had Malik Williams, Henry Pearson, Miller Gibbs, underrated. Thomas Hennigan, all catching passes. I mean, this is, and you would think with players like that, like how was that close? But it was. I mean, it was wild. 310 total yards. Both teams had like 300 yards total. We had, oh man, that was such a bad game. I remember thinking like, how is this happening? It was like slow motion. Like how are we losing Georgia State, or how is Georgia State like nipping at us right now? It's crazy. So I think that it would be conservative to say I think bowl eligibility is likely to happen. I'd say 60%, 65%. It's pretty good. Maybe 70%. But I'll say 60% to be really conservative. Because any given Saturday, you never know what's going to happen. I agree with you about Old Dominion and James Madison. James Madison's specialty, though, this year is running the ball. If our speciality on defense is stopping the run, what happens? And there's so much, there's a month and a half before that game even happens. So
there's a lot of intangibles with playing James Madison, right? Like there's a lot of stuff in their head about us. And you just don't know what that's going to look like at all. Anybody in this league could lose one of their best players, and all of a sudden their outlook looks completely different. So who really knows? But who we've got in front of us is the entire East
Yeah.
and Arkansas State. And Arkansas State got their second win yesterday. um, like I said, Georgia State's 1-4, and then Southern and Marshall both 2-3. But I think you're right about 60%. You're like, it's more than like 50-50.
More than half. Yeah.
More than half, because we have more than half our games left and we're more than halfway there.
Yeah.
To get the 6 wins. That's just like the easiest math possible. But and that's without us like pulling up ESPN and doing all the, looking at all their crazy analytics and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. How was the how's the intro? How are the speakers sounded fine to me. Did they do Welcome to the Rock?
I think they did. You have to double check me because so. And this is what's frustrating. We got into the game. It like I walked in like 5 minutes left on the clock. So
yeah.
But there was just there's something about how they've. I just don't love how they've done the west entrance, like kind of like jamming everybody up in the sidewalk. They don't want people standing on the stairs or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's all about. There's probably some. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that's what they're doing. So you forget that and you're like, oh yeah, I've got to go get in this line and go get into the line. And it was kind of, it was thick at that point. Should have been smarter and left a little bit earlier, but didn't. And that's what happens. But no, the sound was fine. I didn't even notice it. That's the whole point. Like, you don't want to notice it, right? Like if you didn't notice it, all right, great. But I don't think I ever sat back and said, oh, the sound sounds better.
Well, you know what's funny? I asked you, like, how'd the sound, and then I thought to myself as soon as I said that, I was like, well, I was there and I didn't notice anything. So, like, I kind of answered my own question. Like, I didn't notice anything. They must have something changed. I guess
it did, and good job on getting it. I guess if enough people, send those emails. It's funny. It's I got the email today about doing score and all the other things, and I think people are like, oh, I got the survey. I was like, I didn't get a survey. Not that then I realized the survey was actually in that email, or I don't know if it was the time before, but I guess I just missed it. But I did see it today for what it's worth.
I tell you one thing that is now that I'm back to my roots on the west side here. I tell you what's really underrated is the friggin' grab and go. That's cash money right there.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
grab your stuff, go tap your card, and get out. I mean,
mm-hmm.
You can't stand at a concession line. I'd love to do an experiment. Like if you sat in line and got a popcorn or a candy bar in a concession line versus a Gatorade, popcorn, and candy bar at the grab and go. And this is when it's busy. Like I didn't go when it was sparse. That's been really great. Just grab some popcorn for the kids and whatever. Shout out Tommy Miller. Saw Tommy Miller last night under the stands. He's wearing sunglasses with a hat underneath the stands when the sun was going down. I didn't know I thought he was robbing me for a second. Oh, hey, it's just you. But shout out Tommy. I'm just kidding. I didn't think he was gonna rob me. But is there anything else that I feel like, Charles, we're like our next, like we're still waiting, it almost feels like, to gather more data. Like, all right, Oregon State wasn't great. They're certainly not they're not Charlotte. They're not Charlotte. They're not even Lindenwood. But they're not Boise. So, like, how are we going to fare in conference play? How does this compare against other Sun Belt teams? And I think this is actually a pretty good test to see if we can come back and be competitive in that at that kind of tier. And I feel good about it. I still don't think our offensive line is great. We're probably very mediocre at offensive line. Probably did a solid job, not a great job. Defense plays collectively very well and still intense. I love the way Colton Ferris plays. Is there anything else to talk about? What do you think?
I think there's a bunch of small little storylines that we could touch on. Like I thought Jakari Lewis ran really well.
Trig. I'll call him Trig. That's what they're saying now.
I like Jakari. I don't know why. I just like saying it.
I do too.
Maybe I say it so I can remember how to spell it when I have to write about him. I've never talked to the guy, so I don't know if I can call a guy by his nickname if ever,
I don't know.
It's like, hey, you can call me Trig. All right, cool, I will. In the meantime. But yeah,
he looked good too.
He looked good. Davian Dozier is obviously, you know, took advantage of his opportunities yesterday.
Yeah, he did. He looked
Uh,
really good.
we had some, um, and this is game 2 in a row of like the like Jaden Barnes, and like kind of like a little bit of a disappearing act. So,
Yeah.
I mean, last week it made sense. Boise shut us down there. This is Dozier's first game of plays, right? Like significantly, and made big plays, lots of yak yards, and then now you got Cole. And I don't like we said earlier, I don't think there's anything like we don't know what Dow is thinking. Is this a hot hand thing? It sure feels like it.
Yeah.
But it would be really interesting if a switch was made back just because of health. I think you got a guy who was a quarterback, however the game ended. He made the plays when he needed to, made some good throws, some back shoulder stuff, hit guys in stride on touchdowns. There's always going to be a miss or two, but he made them. And so I don't see how you can take that away from him at this point.
Yeah, I don't either. He didn't do anything that made me say otherwise. I don't know. I was satisfied with that level of play, I guess. But I do think though a lot of the struggles that Swan had to do with him just getting pressured and hit quite a bit. So
Sure.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to conference play, man. I do think this has been like a friggin' roller coaster of an out of conference deal. Like we were just going up and down, and like we thought, hey, feel pretty good, and then what in the world? And then it hadn't actually been good since then. But you only got what's on your schedule. We certainly have played closer games. Well, I don't know, it's pretty close. It literally was down to like the very end. We played close games with teams that were beneath us for sure, and we played close games with teams that shouldn't have been close.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all you can. That's all you can ask. But
I think we're closer to what we think we are or could be.
yeah,
It's,
or
it's
maybe this
close
is
as,
it. Maybe we're a 6-6 bowl team. We are.
yeah,
I don't know.
or 7-5. Who knows?
Or 7-5. Who knows? I do think the officiating yesterday was dog. You know what?
I didn't think it was that bad, but there were multiple calls in the fourth quarter. The timing of those, where I was like, "Man, what is happening here?"
No, I thought that spot was ridiculous. And then there was a no call on a pass interference in the first half, happened right in front of a ref. It's like, what in the world? And then there were a couple of like egregious holds there that weren't called in the fourth quarter. I hear what you're saying, but I think watching it back and having the benefit of watching the first half back, just kind of like in my room, undisturbed, I was like, what in the world? And then that fourth quarter just felt like there's some just bad. And thankfully that the call was so obviously not in the end zone that it got turned over. But it's like, man, that's who you got making that call. Anyway, I digress. So, are we good until the next episode?
Yeah, I think we are.
All right, very good. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for listening to this post game edition, and until our preview episode, starting Sunbelt Conference season here against Georgia State this upcoming Saturday. Go Apps.